A neighbor watched someone lock the front door and drive away. 5 hours later, the woman inside was dead. The door was still locked. No one else had entered. No attacker. No weapon. Just a body on the floor of an empty room. By the time investigators understood what killed her, they realized something worse. Whoever locked that door had prepared her death before they left. And the neighbor who saw them didn't think twice, because that person had been there so many times before. 2 years after someone was convicted, I was contacted by the victim's fiancé. He said the person in prison couldn't have been there, that the timeline didn't work, that the witness might have seen someone else. He asked me to find the pattern the police missed. What I found was 2 people who both felt entitled to walk into that house whenever they wanted. 2 people who both had keys. 2 people who both believed they still belonged there. And a death that fits both of them perfectly. My name is Rafe Quinn. I investigate things that do not fit. This case came to me in 2019. The crime itself had happened in 2017. A woman named Julia Brennan had died in her home in Tacoma, Washington. Her ex-husband, a man named Aaron Walsh, had been arrested, tried, and convicted. The case was closed. But Julia's fiancé, David Chen, said something was wrong. He said the person convicted was not the person the witness had seen. I told him I would look. Julia Brennan was 34 years old in April of 2017. She worked as a dental hygienist, had a 5-year-old daughter named Mia from her first marriage. Life had been hard for a while. The divorce from Aaron had been bitter. Arguments over custody, arguments over money, arguments about who got to make decisions about Mia's life. But by 2017, things were finally starting to stabilize. Julia had met David Chen at a community event. They had been dating for just over a year. In March, they got engaged. David moved into Julia's house, a small 2-story place in a quiet Tacoma neighborhood. Julia's friends told me she seemed happy, optimistic. She and David had started talking about David legally adopting Mia. They had already begun converting the spare bedroom into a proper room for her. But not everyone was happy. Julia's mother, Margaret, had made her disapproval clear from the beginning. She told Julia that David was moving too fast, that Mia needed stability, not another father figure. She started calling Julia multiple times a day, asking where she was, who she was with, when she would be home. Friends said Margaret would show up at Julia's house unannounced, let herself in with a spare key. Julia had asked for the key back multiple times. Margaret always said she would return it, but she never did. She told Julia, a mother should always have access to her daughter's home, in case something happens. But Aaron, Julia's ex-husband, was not happy about any of this. Friends told me that Aaron had started showing up at Julia's house unannounced. Even after she changed the locks, he found ways in, through the back door, through an unlocked window. Once, Julia came home to find him sitting in her living room. He told her he was just checking on Mia. But Mia was not there. She was with David. In March, 1 month before Julia died, David confronted Aaron, told him he needed to stop coming into the house without permission. Aaron's response, according to witnesses, was chilling. He said, "That house is still half mine. That child is still mine. You are nobody. You don't get to tell me when I can see my own family." Julia filed a complaint with her attorney. She wanted documentation of Aaron's behavior in case they needed to modify the custody arrangement. 2 weeks later, Julia and David told Aaron they had started adoption paperwork, that David would legally become Maya's father. Aaron called Julia 17 times that night. She did not answer. The next morning, he left a voicemail. In it, he said, "You can't erase me. Mia will always know who her real father is. You are trying to replace me, but you can't." Julia saved that voicemail. Police recovered it from her phone after she died. On the afternoon of the 6th of April 2017, Julia and David spent the morning buying paint and supplies for the spare bedroom. They came home around 1 p.m., carried everything inside, started laying down drop cloths. Around 3:30, David realized they had forgotten painter's tape. He told Julia he would run to the hardware store, be back in 20 minutes. Julia said she would start opening paint cans, maybe get the first coat on one wall before he got back. David left. Julia went upstairs to the spare room. When David returned at 4:10 p.m., the front door was locked. He used his key, walked inside, called Julia's name. No answer. He walked upstairs room, was open. Julia was on the floor, unconscious, not breathing. David called 911. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, but Julia was already gone. Detective Sarah Ortiz arrived at the scene less than 30 minutes later. She was a homicide detective for the Tacoma Police Department, but when she walked into the spare bedroom, she was not sure if there'd been a homicide at all. There was no sign of trauma, no blood, no wounds, no sign of a struggle. The windows were closed. The door had been open when David found her. Paint cans sat unopened on the floor. Everything looked normal. Ortiz questioned David. He said he had been gone less than 40 minutes. Julia had been fine when he left, smiling, excited to start painting. He could not understand what had happened. Ortiz did not suspect David, not at first, but she also could not rule out that Julia had died of natural causes, maybe a seizure, a heart attack, an aneurysm. They would have to wait for the autopsy. 2 days later, the medical examiner called Detective Ortiz. The autopsy results were in. Julia Brennan had died of acute carbon monoxide poisoning. Ortiz went back to the house, brought a hazmat team with her. They tested the air, the furnace, the water heater. Everything came back clean. No carbon monoxide anywhere in the house, which meant the carbon monoxide had been there when Julia died. And then it was gone. Ortiz brought in a forensic specialist, someone who understood how carbon monoxide could be introduced into a closed space. What they determined was chilling. Someone had placed a small portable generator inside the spare bedroom closet. They had sealed the closet door with tape, run a hose from the generator's exhaust into the room itself. Then they started the generator left and locked the front door behind them. The generator would run for approximately 2 hours before running out of fuel. During that time, it would fill the room with lethal levels of carbon monoxide. And then, once the fuel ran out, the gas would dissipate. By the time anyone found the body, the evidence would be gone. Detective Ortiz realized that whoever did this had been inside Julia's house that afternoon. They had time. They had access. And they felt comfortable enough to spend at least 20 minutes setting everything up without fear of being questioned. She started asking a different question. Not who wanted Julia dead, but who felt entitled to walk into her house. Julia's friends told Ortiz that Aaron, her ex-husband, used to let himself in all the time, even after the divorce, even after Julia told him to stop. He still acted like the house was partly his. David had confronted Aaron about it just a month earlier, told him he could not keep doing that. Aaron had not taken it well. He told David that Julia was still his family, that David was the outsider, that Mia would never call him dad. But Aaron had an alibi. He had been at work all afternoon. Co-workers confirmed it. Security footage showed him entering the building at noon and not leaving until 5 p.m. Ortiz also looked at Julia's mother, Margaret. Margaret had disapproved of David, told Julia she was making a mistake. But Margaret had been out of state visiting family. Airline records confirmed it. Until a neighbor came forward. A 16-year-old boy named Ethan lived across the street from Julia. He had been sitting on his porch doing homework on the afternoon Julia died. He told Detective Ortiz that he saw someone walk out of Julia's house around 2:45 p.m. The person locked the door, got into a car, drove away. Ethan said he did not think anything of it because seeing that person there was normal. They had been there lots of times before. Ortiz showed Ethan a photo lineup. He pointed to Aaron Walsh, Julia's ex-husband. On the 12th of June 2017, Detective Ortiz arrested Aaron Walsh for the murder of Julia Brennan. The case against him was strong. He had motive. He was furious about the adoption plans. He had access. He still had a key to Julia's house. And most importantly, a witness had seen him leaving the house an hour before Julia went upstairs. Aaron was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. The case was closed. When David Chen contacted me 2 years later, he sent me everything: police reports, autopsy files, witness statements, security footage, timestamps. I spent a week reconstructing the timeline hour by hour, and immediately I saw the problem. Aaron Walsh's workplace was 43 minutes from Julia's house. Security footage showed him entering his office building at 12:11 p.m. The next timestamp showed him at his desk at 12:17 p.m. He remained visible on camera until 4:52 p.m. when he left for the day. Ethan, the teenage witness, saw someone leave Julia's house at approximately 2:45 p.m. For Aaron to have been that person, he would have needed to leave work by 2 p.m. at the latest. Drive 43 minutes, enter Julia's house, set up a generator in a closet, seal the room, start the device, lock the door, and drive back, all while being continuously visible on security cameras at his desk. It was not possible unless the security footage was doctored, or unless someone else had been there. I pulled Julia's phone records next. On the 6th of April, the day she died, she received 3 calls. One from David at 11:04 a.m., one from her dental office at 1:37 p.m., and one from her mother, Margaret, at 8:22 a.m. The call with Margaret lasted 6 minutes and 12 seconds. I cross-referenced Margaret's credit card activity. At 10:47 a.m., her card was used at a Shell gas station, 12 miles from Julia's house. At 2:16 p.m., the same card was used at a hardware store, 8 miles away. But Margaret had told Detective Ortiz she was out of state that day, visiting family in Arizona. I pulled the airline records. Margaret had booked a flight for the 5th of April. Departure, 6:15 a.m., but passenger manifests showed she never checked in. She never boarded the plane, which meant Margaret was not in Arizona. She was in Tacoma, 12 miles from Julia's house. On the morning Julia died, I called Margaret, told her I was looking into Julia's case. She agreed to meet with me. Margaret lived alone in a ground-floor apartment in a retirement community, 30 miles from where Julia had lived. When I arrived, she was waiting at the door, calm, composed. She offered me tea before I even sat down. Her apartment was meticulously organized, everything in its place. I noticed photographs of Julia and Mia covering an entire wall, but not a single photograph of David. I asked Margaret about the day Julia died. She folded her hands in her lap and told me, very calmly, that she had been visiting family in Arizona. I asked her which family members. She said her sister. I asked her sister's name. She paused, then said, Linda. I asked her about the credit card transactions, the gas station, the hardware store. Both on the 6th of April, she did not look surprised. She looked prepared. She said someone must have stolen her card. I asked when she reported it stolen. She said she did not remember. I asked if she filed a police report. She said no. I asked her if she had a key to Julia's house. This was when her composure cracked, just slightly. Her hands tightened. She looked past me toward the photographs on the wall. Then she said Julia had given her a spare key years ago for emergencies, but she had given it back when David moved in. I asked when. She said she could not remember. I asked if Julia had asked for it back. She did not answer for a long time. Then she said Julia was making a mistake. David was not right for her. He was taking her away from her family. Someone needed to protect Mia. I asked her what she meant by that. She looked directly at me and said, "A mother knows when someone is trying to erase her daughter's past." I left Margaret's apartment thinking about the language she used. Not, Julia made a mistake, but Julia was making a mistake. Present tense, as if it was still happening. Not, David wasn't right, but David was not right. As if the relationship still existed. In cases involving family violence, one pattern appears more than any other: ownership. The belief that a person belongs to you, that their choices are not their own, that you have the right to control their life, even after they have told you to stop. Aaron exhibited this pattern. He continued, entering Julia's house after she told him not to. He raged about David adopting Mia. He could not accept that Julia had moved on. But Margaret exhibited it too. She kept a wall of photographs that erased David's existence. She spoke about Julia as if she still controlled her choices. And she lied about where she was the day Julia died. Not because she feared being suspected, but because she believed she had done nothing wrong. Margaret had motive. She hated David, thought he was ruining Julia's life, thought the adoption was wrong. She had access. She had a key. She had been in and out of Julia's house dozens of times. And she had been 12 miles away on the day Julia died. But Ethan, the teenage witness, had identified Aaron, not Margaret. I went back to the forensic evidence. The generator used to kill Julia had been a portable camping model, small enough to fit in a car trunk, quiet enough that neighbors would not notice it running inside a closet. I pulled purchase records from hardware stores within a 30-mile radius of Julia's house. On the 4th of April, 2 days before Julia died, someone purchased a Coleman PowerMate generator from a Home Depot in South Tacoma. The transaction was paid for in cash, no name. But the store's security footage showed a person wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses loading the generator into the trunk of a sedan. The license plate was partially visible. I enhanced the footage as much as I could. The first 3 digits matched Margaret's vehicle, but the footage was grainy. The timestamp showed 2:14 p.m., and Margaret's credit card had been used at a different hardware store at 2:16 p.m. that same day. It was possible she had driven from one store to another. But tight. I requested Aaron's credit card records as well. On the 3rd of April, the day before the generator purchase, his card was used at an ATM 4 blocks from that same Home Depot. He withdrew $300, cash, enough to purchase a generator without leaving a credit trail. Both of them had means. Both of them had been near the store. And both of them knew how to avoid leaving clear evidence. I went back to Ethan, showed him a new photo lineup. This time, I included Margaret. He stared at the photos for a long time. Then he said he was not sure anymore. He said the person he saw was wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses. He had assumed it was Aaron because Aaron was there all the time. But looking at the photos now, he said the build could have been either of them. He could not say for certain. I do not know who killed Julia Brennan. Aaron Walsh is in prison. The case is closed, but the evidence does not fit cleanly. Aaron had motive. He felt replaced. He was angry about the adoption, but his alibi makes it nearly impossible for him to have been there when Ethan saw someone leaving. Margaret also had motive. She disapproved of David. She had access. She had a key, and her alibi was a lie. What I do know is that someone walked into Julia's house on the afternoon of the 6th of April, 2017. They set up a generator in a closet, sealed the room, and left, confident that if anyone saw them, it would not matter, because they had been there so many times before. David still lives in Tacoma. He raises Maya alone. The spare room remains exactly as it was the day Julia died. Drop cloths on the floor, paint cans unopened. He told me he went in there once about 6 months after Julia's death. He said he could still smell something metallic, something wrong. He locked the door and has not opened it since. I requested copies of his prison correspondence. In a letter to his attorney dated November 2018, he wrote, "I would never hurt Julia. I loved her. I wanted her back. But someone had to stop David from taking my daughter away from me. If I couldn't be Mia's father, no one should be." He never explained how those two sentences could both be true. Margaret was never charged. She still lives in the same apartment. When I spoke to her neighbors, they told me she talks about Julia in the present tense, as if she is still alive. One neighbor said Margaret mentioned that she still has Julia's house key, that she keeps it in case Mia ever needs her. Ethan, the teenage witness, is in college now. I spoke to him on the phone a few months ago. He told me he still drives past that house sometimes. He said the new owners painted the spare room blue. He can see it through the window. But he said every time he passes, he thinks about the person he saw locking the door that afternoon. How casual they looked, how normal. He said, "I keep trying to remember their face, but all I remember is how much they looked like they belonged there." I think about cases like this more than I should. Cases where the most dangerous person is not a stranger breaking in. It is someone who never needed to break in, because they had a key, because they had a key, because they had been welcomed so many times that neighbors stopped noticing when they arrived. There is a psychology to family violence that most people do not understand. It is not always rage. Sometimes it is love, or what the person believes is love. A love so consuming that it cannot tolerate the other person choosing someone else. A love that says, "If I cannot have you, no one can." Someone killed Julia Brennan. Someone who had walked through her front doors. Someone who had sat at her kitchen table. Someone who had held her daughter. Someone who believed that Julia's life was not entirely her own. That her choices about who to love and who to let into her home required permission they had not given. And when Julia chose someone else anyway, that person walked into her house one last time, set up a generator in a closet, sealed a room, and locked the door behind them, confident that if anyone saw them leave, no one would ask why they had been there. But whether that person was the ex-husband who wrote letters about ownership and replacement, or the mother who still speaks in the present tense and keeps a key to a house she no longer has any right to enter, I do not know. What I do know is that entitlement often looks like love, until the day you tell someone they do not belong in your life anymore.